Imagine you're carrying another human in your body for the next 9 months. You're nauseous most mornings and you get repulsed by some foods that you've loved your whole life. Some days your cramps are so bad you can hardly move. Now imagine that during that period of your life, you have to sleep on a stone floor because all the beds are taken up. You never get enough to eat, and you're constantly dehumanized by the people who are only there to make sure that you don't leave. And during the most painful and hard part of it all, you have to be shackled and chained to the bed where you expected to bring another person into this world, your own child that you might not ever get to hold. You are a woman who is incarcerated during pregnancy. How does it feel?
I would imagine, like, I don't know how many, but yeah,
Yes, I am.
No.
Do you believe that incarcerated pregnant women should be shackled during birth if their charges are minor?
No.
Okay.
I would say bad.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
No.
Yeah, sure.
Different facility.
Yeah. Like, should you?
Not with the general population.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yes.
saying.
As long as everybody else's charges are minor.
Okay.
As long as they're not dangerous.
Okay. Yeah.
Very important.
I mean, I honestly don't know, but it seems like that's a natural thing. So if the child gets breastfed, I think that's better than other options.
Yeah.
I would say important. I
Yeah.
don't super know the difference between like the effects on breastfeeding versus bottle, but I would say it's important.
I mean, I think that's probably something that's up to the individual mother.
Yeah.
But
The
it's something that should
opportunity,
be
yeah.
an option. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I think that would depend on charge, probably.
Yeah.
Like I would maybe felony, and then like if it's a long sentence, it makes a little sense to like not have them have custody because like who would have them outside of it? But like if it's like a little few months stint, and then then
Yeah.
that shouldn't be it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We released a survey in January to help gauge the public's awareness on the topic and are still receiving responses. We found that the majority of the people who took the survey were female, and over 52.6% had experienced pregnancy. The majority of the people never read the current legislation for incarcerated pregnant women, and those that didn't read it in depth and were still unaware of the problem. When asked if they knew about the existence of incarcerated pregnancies, most people responded yes. The vast majority thought that breastfeeding was an important decision that most people should always have. 62% of people thought that children ended up staying with other relatives when they were reported in prison. 51.7% thought that they went into the foster care system, and 17.2% thought that the children went into a prison nursery. Most people who took the survey had a variety of opinions about custody laws. However, most agreed that they had never thought a lot about it.
Yeah, my name is Megan Gordon-Kane. I learned about it years ago. I was actually, when I was in law school, I was hosting a sex ed trivia night, and one of the questions that I found was about like shackling during labor and how almost 32 states, at least at the time, it was like 32 states allow it, and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
But I work at a nonprofit that focuses on a wide range of reproductive justice issues. And reproductive justice is really wide-ranging, focusing on everything from like your ability to have, like decide when and how to like create your families, to have safe and healthy pregnancies, safe and healthy relationships, to parent your children with dignity. So obviously that's really like broad, and the ability and like the treatment of pregnant women definitely falls within that. And so I know some of our community partners have been working on specifically anti-shackling legislation for years. It's hard to pick a main thing because the bill actually does a lot. It does looks at shackling of pregnant women who are incarcerated, both like during labor, as in like actually you're in the process of giving birth, but you're like shackled to your bed, which is really unhealthy and can be really dangerous if there's an emergency that needs like immediate medical intervention. But also just shackling earlier during pregnancy, because you know you're might be larger and your balance is off, but also falls are particularly dangerous to a pregnancy, so it's still unsafe and creates a lot of risk. So we're looking at that. Also looking at setting up infrastructures for prenatal care and pregnancy-related treatment, because what's happening right now is that, of course, prisons and jails and their like medical infrastructures were not created with pregnant women in mind. So what's happening is that they're not prepared to meet these needs, and so the needs are not being met. So we're requiring them to set up to either like contract with an outside OBGYN who can like come in and provide care as needed, to have someone on staff, whatever they want to do, but just there's some sort of system in place so that those needs can be met, and you don't have to go through like weeks and weeks of red tape to make sure folks are getting the care that they need. The bill also looks at more broadly how all women are treated, not just pregnant ones. Just little things like that are designed to allow the staff to like still do what they need to do, but while also trying to build in like, okay, but let's see if we can send in like women instead, so we're like preserving folks' dignity, making people less uncomfortable while still getting the job done. Yeah. That's an interesting question, because I think it all makes a difference. I think for those who are pregnant, like I'm torn between sort of saying the anti-shackling measures, but also the like just setting up the infrastructures for medical care. Yeah, I don't know. They both seem like they would be really helpful, but those are just sort of my guesses, because that's not my experience, and I imagine that everyone, like based on the individual experiences, will have like different things that like they sort of feel is improving their situation the most.
I'm Amy Ard. I'm the Executive Director of Motherhood Beyond Bars. Motherhood Beyond Bars is the only nonprofit organization in Georgia that's got a laser focus on incarcerated pregnant women and new mothers. We've been around about 5 years. Was first started as a program of Rollins School of Public Health at Emory, but this past year have spun off and become our own distinct organization. We work closely with the Department of Corrections and still researchers at Emory University.
Thank you for being here with us. What are your views on breastfeeding?
Well, currently, women who are pregnant or and recent mothers do not have the ability to breastfeed if they're incarcerated after the birth. The majority of women that give birth inside the Department of Corrections, so these are state prisoners, are transferred immediately from the hospital within 48 hours to Lee Arundel State Prison, and there's no breastfeeding support there. I think that is something that can change and should change. We know that the babies would benefit tremendously from breast milk from their mothers, but right now there's just no way to express breast milk in prison or to get the milk to the babies.
So how specifically does breastfeeding help the child?
Well, we know that there are nutritional benefits for babies. That's been really, really well documented. That we could lower incidences of childhood disease and sicknesses if the babies were able to get the breast milk from their mothers. Being pregnant is hard. Your body goes through a lot of changes. Your hormones change tremendously. There are aches, there are pains. And it requires a support from hopefully a supportive partner. And this is just a best case scenario. For women who are in prison, the difficulties of pregnancy are really exacerbated. They're in an environment where if they're hungry, they can't go to the kitchen and get an extra snack. Their diet is limited. They are apart from their support system. They may be able to make phone calls, but those are also restricted. They can't pick up the phone and call an OB to ask them a question. They don't have an internet to look up resources. I mean, most pregnant people spend half of their time on the internet looking up, is this normal? Is that normal? So it makes a difficult time much, much harder. And then, because I've never had the experience of being separated from a child right after birth, I can only begin to imagine the emotional stress. I can tell you that I spend time with a lot of women who have gone through that experience, and it is devastating to them. Emotionally, physically, their bodies ache. They can't breastfeed, so their milk fills up their breasts, and there's nothing to do with it. There's no baby to feed. And then there's just the shame that I think they carry around with them for not being able to care for their children because of a choice they made. 90% of the women who are in prison have been victims of abuse themselves at some point in their life. So these are women who have come from pretty unstable life situations and have ended up making a series of choices that have landed them in prison, and they carry that shame around with them and real sorrow for not being the kind of mothers that they want to be for their children. I do a postpartum support group every week at Lee Arundel for women who have recently had a baby and have gone back to prison without their babies. And the first time I did that class, I thought I was prepared. I thought I was prepared for the sad stories, and I brought all my boxes of Kleenex. And one of the first stories I heard was a real lesson in understanding that I was not truly prepared for the stories. One of the women in my class gave birth and was at the hospital for a couple of days to see her daughter. Held her daughter, bathed her daughter, and then had to go back to Lee Arundel, and her daughter went to live with her parents. And 4 months after birth, her child died of SIDS. And so that's a woman who will be getting out of prison, but will be going home to no baby. And that is a horrifying story. And probably one of the worst of my group, because most of the women in my group have a baby to go home to, but every once in a while, that period of time that they had postpartum was the only time that they will ever have with their children. There are other really heartbreaking stories of women who know that they won't be reunified with their children because they've lost their parental rights. And they struggle with that in my class every week. They still think of themselves as mothers to these children. They yearn for a relationship, but they know that even when they get out, they won't be legally the mother of those children.
My name is Elizabeth O'Brien. I'm a psychotherapist that specializes in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, and I work with a larger organization called Postpartum Support International, which is an umbrella nonprofit that works with perinatal mood and anxiety disorders all over the world. Well, we know that it's incredibly valuable that a mom gets good prenatal care due to the baby's fetal development. So that can look like adequate prenatal vitamins and access to prenatal vitamins, as well as enough protein for brain development. And I can't say that I know that pregnant women receive any sort of different dietary allocations in prison, but they should.
Yeah.
That they are receiving better nutrition, that they are receiving better medical care, that they're receiving mental health support, as well as that they're receiving childbirth education and postpartum support to attend to early childhood development needs, adjusting to being a parent, and any of their mental health needs. Again, isolation, not a lot of exercise and stimuli or emotional support. Sometimes women who are experiencing depression and anxiety during pregnancy benefit from mental health support as well as medication that can be really valuable. And you know, we look at the risk versus benefits. So having a mom receiving treatment in some capacity is better for a baby's development than not. And so the fact that she doesn't even have access to that is really unethical. It absolutely can have tragic, I mean, it can be traumatic for her, actually. And, you know, the postpartum period is a biopsychosocial time. So there's hormones, there's situations, there's her own emotional well-being. And so to be separated, to have no choice away from her baby can be really traumatic, and it could have, you know, lasting negative impacts on her. When we don't take care of our most vulnerable populations, pregnant and little babies, it's like we don't care for our whole state.
We might just be 3 random girls who never thought we would be anything bigger than that, just 3 random girls. But we are more, and we can all do more. We took a problem and made it so much bigger than it was. We created something that we hope will change lives. If 3 nobodies can change a life, then you can too. So please, help us make an impact. Call your representatives today. Help us make a change.